Hello and welcome to the Film Angle. I'm Alex,
And I'm Chris.
and today we are finally getting around to reviewing Everything Everywhere All at Once and two films with very large names, The Worst Person in the World, as well as maybe a couple of others that we've been catching up on. But we do realise that 2 episodes ago we said we would review Everything Everywhere All at Once, but due to, would you say, Plymouth's culture and arts community. Yeah, you didn't get the film for like a good week, right, Chris?
Okay, you're alienating some people there. There was a delay for some reason. It was playing up country in other multiplexes. For some reason, there was a 1 week stutter, but we finally got it, and it's playing pretty regularly every day. Got the chance to see it on the first day, and looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I am only joking. There is obviously a good art scene in Plymouth. It is just a shame that obviously the films don't get down that way as fast as maybe they should sometimes, because we're all excited.
Absolutely, everybody loves cinema everywhere, right? I mean, like there's movie lovers everywhere, and it really sucks when you have to travel 2 hours to find a nice. Well, this isn't even an indie film. It's probably A24's biggest movie that they've made so far. So it was always going to be popular. So I don't know what was the delay, but I'm glad that we got to see it nonetheless.
Well, shall we just jump straight into Everything Everywhere All at Once then? Um,
Yeah.
it is directed by the Daniels. Uh,
Yes.
It is like you said, an A24 distributed film, and it's about an interdimensional rupture in
Hmm.
reality. That means our hero Michelle Yeoh must channel these kind of powers from different universes, multiverses, and to kind of save the world, essentially. And it sounds like a Marvel film. It sounds a little bit like our recent multiverse film,
Yeah.
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It seems multiverses are the thing right now. But made with like a fraction of the budget. From what I can tell from doing research online, it had a budget of 25 million US dollars,
Wow.
which is nothing compared to the probably
Wow.
200, 150 million that Doctor Strange had. And uh, you know,
That's crazy.
it looked like a big blockbuster film. There's definitely some elements which you could say like like a large majority of it is set inside like an office. But they make the most of kind of like effects and costumes and hairstyles and all these different kind of multiverses. That it definitely feels like they used every single penny on this film and then some. So clearly, they found a magic way of kind of stretching this budget to go far.
That's amazing. I didn't actually look into the budget for the film, but yeah, I mean, half of that's going to be spent on hair and makeup alone, or the costumes. The costumes, I can't remember the last time I've seen so many costumes in a movie. Most of which are only used for a split second of film, and it's incredible the amount of effort and love put into this movie is. And yeah, they spent every penny, obviously very wisely.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's probably fair to say, anybody who hasn't seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, stay clear. We're gonna go into spoilers here, Chris.
Yeah, I think that's generally our thing now. We like to talk about films in depth, and I think this one's you can't dance around it. I don't think.
No, and it's better to know less going in. So go watch it, come back.
Yes.
But by the time this review airs, it's been out in UK cinemas for 2 weeks now. So hopefully, a good chunk of you have heard that a lot of people are loving this film, and maybe you've gone out to see it yourself.
Yeah, I love the movie, man. I mean, I thought that it was an incredible achievement in filmmaking in every respect. On a technical level, editing, stunt work, and creative, this film is just firing on all cylinders all the time. I don't think it rarely ever lets up. Cast is headed by some really big legends of Asian cinema, such as like Michelle Yeoh and James Hong. An incredible comeback performance from Ki Kwan, which most people probably remember from playing Short Round in the 1986 Temple of Doom Indiana Jones movie.
Hell yes. I loved
Yeah,
that film and I loved Short Round in it. What a comeback. I like when I found out it was him, I was just like, I love this guy.
I think he even does a throwback line to Temple of Doom in this film.
Does
I think
he?
where he says that's funny. That's so funny. That's like one of Short Round's biggest lines. And in
Yeah.
Temple of Doom, like that when Indy gets squirted by the elephant, he's like very funny, very funny. And I think he says it twice in this movie.
See, I think I missed that. But to be fair, there's a lot going on in this
Oh,
film that
it's
I think
jam
it's pretty
packed.
easy to miss a few things.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, like it will take about quite a few, several viewings to really feel like you can remember everything that went on. Everything goes so quickly, but that's not a bad thing though. I think there's such a great momentum in the filmmaking. It's edit must have been a nightmare to edit.
I just like part of me was just thinking like even the pre-planning and thought to go into making this film, like how do you even go about thinking about this? Like it seemed like such a headache to make. Like I don't envy them, but clearly the Daniels have put their kind of vision on the screen in a very special way.
I think the story centers around an aging Chinese laundromat owner named Evelyn whose business is falling apart. Her marriage is failing. She has a judgmental elderly father staying with her, and her relationship with her daughter is strained to say the least. So, as if all of this gloom wasn't really enough, she has to attend a meeting with an IRS agent, played brilliantly by Jamie Lee Curtis, who's basically telling her and her family that their business is failing and they're running out of chances. And if it is within this meeting with Evelyn that she reluctantly gets swept up into this adventure across all these different multiverses to stop an evil force. And that evil force is quite a surprise.
Yes, it ends up being Evelyn Evelyn's own daughter Joy, played by Stephanie Shu.
She's amazing in this.
Yes, and I think because they've kind of kept her villain role hidden in the marketing for this film, she's maybe not getting as much credit as say Michelle Yeoh and Ki Kwan,
Yeah.
because obviously they are excellent and no doubt like incredible performances from them both. But I was just really
Hmm.
blown away that there was somebody else there, Stephanie Shu, who I hadn't really heard of before. When I looked at her credits, I saw that she'd been in Shang-Chi and she played like one of the friends of of um of the main characters in the bar or the restaurant at the start.
Okay.
So a very very small role, but I just thought she was incredible here, and she gets to have a lot of fun
Yeah.
because she's kind of I don't really like she can travel through, like she can take on multiverses. She's experiencing multiverses all at the same time. It's not
Yeah.
like like it's a bit odd, but she gets to kind of uh just become different characters or different versions of herself all at the same time. So basically, the everything everywhere all at once is happening to her essentially.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Agent Smith character in the Matrix movies, where he's almost like she's a sort of virus, um, kind of hopping from world to world and kind of trying to take over and neutralize everything. Would you sort of say
Yes,
there is a very Matrixy feel to this movie?
there's a lot of Matrixy feel to it, but I guess maybe I mean I definitely enjoyed this film, but I think I have some criticisms of it. And since we are talking about the villain of this piece, I guess my biggest issue with the film was kind of the motivation behind the villain and some of the or lack of kind of context behind the relationship between her and her mother Evelyn.
Okay.
The film, I think the film at the start puts a lot of context into her relationship with Ki Kwan,
Hmm.
and how their marriage is kind of maybe broken and coming to it like a header in terms of like it could go either way in terms of how they're going to be together. Obviously, Michelle Yeoh is feeling like she could have had a different life if she'd done things differently, and maybe life would be better without him, etc. And obviously, there's a big thread of the film there that deals with that, and that's the
Yeah.
real emotional core of the film, and the part of the film that really kind of registered with me most because that was the kind of stuff that really made me feel things.
Yeah.
Her relationship with her daughter is kind of a little bit like more looser. You see at the start like she's not fully okay or not fully come to terms with her daughter's sexuality and hasn't really
Yeah,
welcomed her daughter's girlfriend into the family or anything like that, and is kind of keeping it a secret from her dad.
yeah.
So when the villain's revealed, I didn't like. There was a lot of talk about like how their relationship was strained and how Joy was potentially a bit of a mess of a daughter, but I didn't feel like I'd seen that so much.
She's wearing an oversized flannel shirt.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's
That didn't do it for me. That wasn't enough. So I feel like if they, I almost wanted the film to give me more of why that was happening. So why, in the end of the day, was Joy doing what she was doing, and what was she trying to do? The
mm,
film kind of goes through this idea that she's taking over different worlds and trying to destroy everything, but at the end, it's like actually she just wants to destroy herself. But I'm
hmm
not sure, is did she want to destroy herself because she was depressed or upset? I'm not sure. The film doesn't give us the answers to that as much as it gives us answers to everything else. And then why does she want to? She wanted to find a version of her mum that understands her, but then destroy her too.
hmm
I was getting a little bit confused by that arc, and I felt that the main emotional thread and kind of conflict throughout for me was the relationship between Michelle Yeoh and Ki Kwan, and how that came to
yeah.
a head. That worked really well for me. The mother daughter stuff didn't work as well for me.
Okay. Um, I agree with you that there is less literal evidence in the film or context to support the fact that their relationship is as tenuous as, say, her and Kikwan's or her father's. But I would argue that there's enough justification in the background of Michelle Yeoh's character where it all stems from that initial relationship she had with her father, that disobedience, that moving to America, that sort of stemmed into a sort of platonic marriage, and then that kind of birthed Joy. So Joy is sort of like the end product of a series of mistakes that Michelle Yeoh's character has made, and I think there's enough justification in that timeline to sort of say that, right, I get why this girl hates her mother, or I understand why her mother is very indifferent to her daughter because her daughter reminds her of her past mistakes. And I think that's kind of where those two moments met. I made the connection in my mind. I would agree with you. It doesn't necessarily is vocalized in the film, but I think there's enough going on in the background where you can kind of come to that.
Yeah, I guess it, like for me that would make more sense if Evelyn was the villain of the piece, because you can understand her indifference to her daughter, like she doesn't fully understand like her sexuality and the perceived, like you said, the perceived ideas that all her mistakes have led her down this road, which is a
Mm,
horrible way of thinking. But obviously, the film is kind of uses the multiverse in a really special way in terms of like reaffirming the idea that actually the choices you made have made the best version of you.
mm,
It actually, the multiverse is there for a reason rather than just being like a concept that's playful, though they are very playful with it.
mm.
Um, but yeah, I loved Stephanie Shu as Joy. I just wanted to know more about like why she had gotten to this place where she just wanted to destroy herself and potentially everything with her. I was just struggling to find the motivation there.
No, that's completely understandable. It did work for me, and certainly the last 20 to 30 minutes of the film like really reached an emotional, all-encompassing crescendo about family dynamics and generational differences. Yeah, it really, really worked for me, and I can't wait to see it again. But it's also really damn funny and dense with things to see, and I think no matter what, yeah, I know you really liked it anyway, and I think that's the least thing you'll probably come away with this film. I think it's hard not to come away at least liking it, so it's definitely worth everybody seeing. Would you agree?
Yes, yeah, I think there's not been really a kind of like a more original and creative film that kind of really goes for it like this one does. And although I think there are times when it's a bit messy, and I think there are times when it's a bit too long, and kind
Mhm.
of maybe a little bit too in love with itself. Like it lingers on a few things and repeats itself a few times with some of the style and concept. And I was kind of like, all right, move it on, move it on. I want to
Yeah.
feel the feels and get the emotion in the story. But there is no doubt that like I haven't really seen anything like this film, and
No.
it's definitely worth seeing. I would say that maybe there's an element of, I think it's been out for a few months now in the States.
Yeah.
It's been very hyped, and when you hear these things, you go into a film with a certain set of expectations.
Yeah, like
Uh,
your whole worldview is going to be rewritten, and cinema is never going to be the same. That sort of stuff
Exactly.
sometimes.
My brother called me and he was just like, it's immediately become my favorite film, and
Oh,
like
right.
and he
Okay.
yeah, so I was like, "Oh my god, I need to like it's going to be good." I knew it was going to be good, and I definitely thought it was good. But I maybe came out with a few more criticisms than I thought I would. But yeah, worth seeking out either way because, like I said, just the originality on play and the kind of way they've been able to stretch the budget to create this kind of crazy action film with a kind of crazy set of rules.
Oh,
Um,
the
it
action is incredible, isn't it? Like the stunt work. I mean, like there was so many full body shots of Michelle Yeoh and Ki Kwan, and obviously they're not doing all their own stunts, right? But you can never. I never was distracted or felt that was a stunt double or anything. This
no.
the effects they put into this is is incredible.
Though that being said, Ki Kwan is a stunt coordinator. I think that's what he spent some of his time when he wasn't acting doing.
Hmm.
And Michelle Yeoh is an incredible martial artist. So potentially, who knows? Potentially they didn't need stunt doubles. There's some pretty special and unique effects going on in this film.
Yeah,
Um,
hot dog fingers.
hot dog fingers, a long running ratatouille joke with a
Yeah.
raccoon. Um, there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't know about your cinema experience, Chris, but there's a bit in I would say maybe to the later half of the film. I don't think it was midway through the film, but they
Okay.
kind of they pretend that the film finishes there. Michelle Yeoh's characters look like she's been killed off, and they finish the film. And my cinema lights actually went on. Did yours?
Oh no.
Yeah. So the cinema I was in, they had incorporated, I guess, the lights going on at that moment as well. And I thought, like, that's something that you can only get in a cinema. Like, you can't get that with a home
That's
release.
amazing.
And there
Did
was
anybody get up?
nobody got up. Nobody got up. And it did mean that even at the end, nobody got up. Then they were like, "Is this another fake out?" But I thought that was really good because even though in my mind I was just like, definitely not the end. Like it
No.
definitely feels like a fake out. But the lights coming on triggers something in you where you're like, but could it be? And I was like, there is no way this is the film that everybody's going on about if it ends just like that.
No, if it ended just there, it'd be worst film of all time.
Yeah, I was just like, why? That was so pointless, but also
No,
ballsy.
you know what? So much happens in that movie. I actually forgot about that. That tells you how much is going on here. That's something so big as if fake credits. I forgot about, but it was yeah, it was great. I can't wait to watch it again. I might even pay another trip to see it.
See, I might wait till it's on home release. I think
Yeah.
it's a long film. It's a long film, and I liked it. I very much liked it, but I don't think I was as head over heels with it as maybe you were, Chris.
No, that's absolutely fine. I like different opinions because everybody seems to be like absolutely, like me, raving about this thing. And it's kind of refreshing to see somebody have a different opinion on the story that didn't work for you. I find that much more
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, no, of course. I think it's good to have differing opinions as well. However, I'm a little bit worried about how my brother might react to this. I'm sorry I didn't love it, Jacob. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like, I completely agree with you. Whenever you get so much hyperbole, and everybody on the internet is giving it 5 stars, I mean, with very little movement between ratings, your expectations are going to go in at 100. Maybe it would have been different if you went in. like first day and there was a small movie and nobody was talking about it, you might have
Yeah,
came out championing it differently. But I completely agree with that. It's a very interesting thing to talk about, expectations. But yeah, that's what we think about everything everywhere all at once. Please make sure to see it. It's definitely worth the trip.
definitely, definitely. And I think it's also worth saying that the Daniels' previous film, Swiss Army Man, is also another kind of very creative, quirky film
Hmm.
that's kind of very emotionally resonant, uh, despite the fact that it's about a farting corpse. And I know that sounds stupid, but yeah, no, I think I think
Hmm.
maybe there was almost more subtlety to Swiss Army Man uh, than this film. So definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it, because I think it also hits very hard.
It's funny as an exercise. You know, the thing with everything everywhere all at once is that they pretty much do an exercise in every genre. Um, for the most part. And they do like a sort of tribute to Wong Kar Wai's films. He's a very famous Chinese filmmaker, and he's very like a slow moving drama guy. And it's this stuff in the alleyway between Michelle Yeoh and Ki Kwan. And I would love to see them do a straight up drama or something. I think I would love to see them just exercise a little bit more restraint next time and see if they can just do a straight genre film. I mean, they seem to have the knack for everything.
As long as it's as original and creative as they've done, but as they've done with their previous films, I'm all up for seeing them just doing something
Do
completely like
anything.
a left turn. Yeah, obviously, very much worth watching them as they go forward and seeing what they do next. I just hope that this isn't going to lead them onto a Marvel film. Like stay in this space of creative ness, and I think already it's like A24's biggest film to date. So
Mm.
hopefully that will afford them some creative freedom. Not that it doesn't feel like they needed that they were restrained here, but
Yeah.
the creative freedom to go on and make more projects, which I think would be very nice.
Yep. Everything everywhere all at once. Not Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange good, but if you had to choose between the two,
Yeah,
I know what one I'd be picking.
in terms of a multiverse film, Everything Everywhere All at Once definitely does a lot more with the concept, and because I guess it hasn't got the baggage of Marvel, truly
Yeah.
uses the multiverse in a way to kind of heighten the themes rather than just being like a quirky thing that happens.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
like the multiverse informs the story rather than just being another thing that's part of it. Um, but yeah, no, it's great. Before we talk about the other film with the very long name that we were going to talk about, Chris,
Yeah.
what else have you been watching recently? Anything you want to discuss?
Yeah. I recently took a very, very cool solo trip to the cinema to see Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Oh wow,
Um,
was that as awkward as going solo to watch Benedetta?
it wasn't as awkward because everybody else in the cinema was an adult,
Oh wow, okay.
which is strange. And they were all laughing hysterically at every joke that was coming on the screen, and I didn't laugh at one, and I felt so bad. I felt like I was just at the wrong party. I really wanted to like this, Alex. I've heard many opinion out there that the first Sonic movie is one of the better video game to film adaptations to sort of come out in recent years. I only caught up with the first movie last week, and Sonic 2 I went to see basically just to justify my membership to my local multiplex. I sat through the film for over 2 hours, and yeah, first of all, I could not believe that it was over 2 hours long, and it
Wow.
felt it. I know
Oh
for a kids'
wow.
film,
Yeah, that.
that is very, very kid-like in every respect. Um, I think what it comes down to is that it's a clash of two pretty ugly things, and that is one, the humor, which is a lot of really feels like a byproduct of quick gratification culture of say like YouTube and TikTok, just like really bad obvious jokes that might as well have a laugh track underneath them. Um, Two is the fact that it's also very traditional in terms of its storytelling and plays like by every trope in the book.
Yeah.
So you know what? It feels like something that could should have came out about 15 years ago. Like it has two third acts. We get to a really big set piece, and then you think the movie is about to end, and you're like, thank goodness. And then only to find out a new conflict arises, setting up for the last 30-minute set piece of the movie. You know
Oof.
when that happens? You know when
Yeah.
you go see a Transformers movie and you're like, surely I can't be seeing any more robots hitting each other anymore. And then Michael Bay says, right, here's a new city, and here's a new thing, here's a big fight. It's like that with Sonic 2. But I might be in the minority. Like I said, there were a few others in the cinema, and they were having a great time. So I'm the party pooper.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I've seen the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and I thought it was okay, fun, but not like very childish in its tendencies, but for obvious
Yeah,
reasons. Like, this is a kids' film or a family film. At the end of the day, you need to kind of make everyone laugh. And if the adults are having fun, that's enough, really, for most
mm.
family films. If the kids are laughing and the adults are having fun, then sure, very serviceable family film. Um, if the kids are laughing and the parents are crying, it's probably a Pixar film, and then that's even better.
Yeah. Com- Completely agree. Or if everybody's crying, that's Paddington too.
Well, yeah, there is that. There is that. But yeah, I do want to catch Sonic 2. I'm not rushing out to the cinema. I haven't got any membership card to justify, so I guess I'm lucky in that sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for doing the hard work there, Chris, and
Oh
go to
well,
watch a Sonic movie that's over 2 hours long. Blimey heck.
well, you hear about like people. Like I used to love listening to Mark Kermode, and he always had to see movies that were probably like he had to go see the Paw Patrol movie and everything. So I feel sorry for guys like that. That's their job, is that they have to see 1 hour kid specials in cinemas and review them. But like like you said, there is stuff for adults. Like what I will say is that I really enjoyed the B plot in this, where Sonic's adoptive human parents, I know, don't ask questions, go to a wedding in Hawaii, and it goes really pear shaped, and that was kind of funny. But that's not good. That's not good that I enjoyed a human rom com B plot in a Sonic movie more than the actual stuff happening with Sonic.
Yeah, there
So
is that.
yeah,
What about
Jim Carrey was fun.
I was about to
Admittedly,
ask, yes, how.
yeah, he's the glue keeping it together. But it seemed like he was having fun, but still very, very like a Lazy Town esque character. Very like it's very childlike in its
Yeah,
sensibilities, which is hard to sort of the punchlines are you can sort of see them coming.
yeah.
But it was fun.
He's having fun. He's having
Yeah,
fun, and he's getting another paycheck in.
exactly.
The man deserves it. He's a comedic legend.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if your kids are Sonic fans, definitely take them to see it. Just I don't know, bring a pillow with you.
There was another kind of family film that came out recently that we both got a chance to see, and also features a version of Sonic that we have seen once before, and that was the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers reboot, remake,
The film we didn't know we needed.
resequel, squeakle, if you
The
if you the
squeakquel, yeah.
squeakle.
I there's Alvin and the Chipmunk jokes in this, and I don't
There's
think they're fans.
everybody in this film. It's very much a Who Framed Roger Rabbit style kind of Disney adventure, but
Yeah,
they were able to get the IP for not just Disney characters. They've got South Park characters in there. There was a
yeah,
Batman and versus ET, Sonic. How they were able to pull this off is one thing, but yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of these kind of cartoons and kind of Disney projects from the last probably 50 years or so, maybe, if not more,
yeah,
then it's quite the treasure trove of Easter eggs and cameos.
yeah. That's what I quite liked about this film, and I struggle to see who it's targeted towards because a lot of those Easter eggs are very sort of like for people who are fans of animation and people who are fans of the history of the last sort of 30, 40 years of animation and the segues it's taken, its mishaps and its good moments too. So it's for the person who likes their movies and their animation will be very rewarded by this. Your kids might be there just for the plot and they might have an okay time, but I think adults are definitely getting more out of this.
Yes, yeah, and it's very creative in terms of its kind of like all the different animation styles are on play. You've got a lot of kind of like Hollywood industry in jokes with Dale getting the CGI makeover. Am I right?
Yep.
Yep, because
Yeah.
Chip
No.
doesn't.
Deal.
He's still 2D ish animation and kind of yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's very much informed by like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and
Oh, which
so
is one
much.
of my favorite childhood movies of all time.
You know,
I love the Hebrew
it's a
Nightmare.
big detective kind of plot that looks
Mm,
back at kind of the heyday of aging actors and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I saw somebody on Letterboxd say it was as if the film had been like written by Shane Black. You know, and I was like, yes, it's very Shane Black in style.
yeah, it's helmed by the Lonely Island crew, isn't it? If you don't know, I know you know Alex, because you're big fans like a big fan like me. They're a comedy trio, um, consisting of Akiva Schaffer, Andy Samberg, and Jorma Taccone. Is Jorma Taccone?
Yeah,
Who are also they've made films like Hot Rod and Pop Star, Never Stop Stopping. So like those names are enough to hook me in. And I think it's their first film in quite a while, probably since 2016. So
I
I
think
was
this is the follow up to Popstar, right?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they've been off the scene for as a trio for a while. Obviously, they're all working a lot individually, but I'm under no like illusions here. Like the movie is 90% nostalgia, and whether
Oh
it's
yeah,
in the foreground or background or where we have crossover animation styles from different decades, it just really becomes an exercise of I know that thing, but
yes.
it gets away with it. With how funny and how organically it features that sort of material.
And almost in the way of like you know, Marvel obviously uses this to great effect maybe, but here because it's not Marvel it almost feels more fun because you're seeing a marvelized version of a Disney world instead, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, there's also the thing like you don't know the rules of this world. They're so undefined that you don't know what's going to come up next, and that's kind of part of the excitement too. Like we have a billboard poster of Meryl Streep with a bald cap promoting a movie called Mr. Doubtfire. Like you said, we have a South Park character. We have Randy from South Park chilling in a bathhouse, and we also have Seth Rogen as a Viking, which is poking fun at the Uncanny Valley thing that Zemeckis did with the Polar Express and Beowulf. And yeah, those little misfires and triumphs, they both live like both the feelings of animation and the highlights in animation history. They both live in tandem in Hollywood, and it's the both extremes living in the same communities together, and that's what makes the member berries go down easily with this movie, and it's fun. It is unique in that way.
It's fun and it's going to be one of those films where probably going to be a fun rewatch one day. With the
Yeah,
family and stuff like that. Like that. Like I'm not probably going to be clambering to go see it. It's not rewatchable for me straight away. Whereas
no,
films that did something similar, say like the Lego Movie, I absolutely adore, and I think they were able to do it more and kind of tug on your heartstrings a bit. I
yeah.
would watch the Lego Movie right now if I could. You know?
It comes down to story, doesn't it? I mean, the story in Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers is okay, but but the movie flies by really quickly, and you have enough distractions to get you over the main plot that that's not as much as a problem. Like the main plot's almost a B plot to all the sight and scenery and all the jokes on the way, and you kind of just go along for the ride. I thought a flew by for me,
Yeah.
and it's getting to see Ugly Sonic get his justice against the internet is was enough for me.
Yes, the Sonic that originally appeared in the first trailer for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which kind of disgusted everybody because they hated the design and it forced the studio to go back and redo it into the design that we see in the films now. It's kind of funny in a way that ugly Sonic, as he's referred to, ends up being in a better film than both the Sonic movies, maybe.
And he works for the FBI.
Yeah, it's very funny. I'm surprised they didn't release it in cinemas because it's very much a clap along kind of film. Point at the screen and go, I know that. But yeah, Though, to be fair, I don't know whether either of us would have headed to see it in the cinema. So maybe there's that to
Mm.
contend with as well, and maybe that's to do with the kind of the identity crisis of like, who is this for?
Yeah, and resurrecting your main characters are resurrected 90s television characters. So you're in that really weird spot. It's like, yeah, I'm sure Chip and Dale had a big following back in the 90s as a TV show, but there's not millions of them out there that are clamoring to go pay tickets for this.
No.
So yeah, it is an interesting pitch. I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad it was a little extra on Disney Plus. So if you have the time to watch it and you like your movies and you have a good knowledge of pop culture, you're gonna have a lot of fun with Chip and Dale. Okay, so another film I managed to catch up with, which has kind of been circulating in festivals over the last sort of year, been picking up a load of momentum online. A lot of people have been catching up with it, and it's a horror drama film called "We're All Going to the World's Fair." It's this fascinating low budget horror drama from a non-binary filmmaker, Jane Schoenbrunn, and produced by David Lowery, who we all know from The Green Knight, The Ghost Story, etc. We're All Going to the World's Fair basically centers around a young teenager named Casey, who, alone in her attic bedroom, participates in this online horror game called The World's Fair, which basically consists of a ritual she has to perform on webcam, which is rumored online to alter your own self before actually sucking you into the computer screen and consuming you. Or so the rumor goes. Casey really immerses herself over this game, and reality and fantasy really begin to blur. The whole film is basically a solo performance in front of a webcam. So Casey, who is played by a terrific young actress who's called Anna Cobb, and I think it's her debut performance, and she really has to do a lot of the heavy lifting and to sell the story. It's inspired by creepypasta, which I'm sure you're probably aware of, Alex. Um,
I am actually not.
okay, well, for those and yourself who aren't aware, creepypasta is an online thread that was birthed on Reddit some 12 or so years ago that became like an online hub for people to share local folklores and urban legends, often of a horror nature. And these stories became sort of larger than life and kind of outgrew um their source. I believe Slenderman was birthed out of a creepypasta actually, and that's exactly what this teenager in this film is sort of participating in. She's kind of getting involved in this sort of, you know, like a Candyman sort of ass looking in the mirror and saying Candyman 3 times.
Yeah.
It's kind of that sort of challenge. Casey, she has a widowed father who is never on screen, seems despondent, and we only ever hear his voice once, and that's when he yells at her. So Casey is really isolated and alone. We never see her occupied in the same space as another human being. She begins to document her own progress through the challenge on webcam, where weird things begin to happen, and this older anonymous man, he goes by the name online as JLB, who's equally obsessed with this game, begins to regularly talk to her as he is worried about the path she's getting herself down into. So yeah, it's pretty bare bones, and it's a very quiet, unsettling, and ultimately it's very ambiguous. But it's up to the viewer really to decide whether the things happening to Casey on the webcam are real or if she is making them up, or if that's a product of her isolation and her teenage disparity. So you're watching things like she sets up a webcam and logs her sleep every night, and it's that sort of paranormal activity thing where like 7 hours of the sleep she's sleeping like an angel, and then suddenly she starts to pull a face like in front of the camera, like it's really gaunt and it's really creepy and unsettling, and the movie never literalizes if that's actually happening to her or if she is just doing it for attention, and it's really fascinating. It's unsettling anyway.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a fascinating piece of film. It's
Is it one
like, I
of
mean,
those films that's like all on a computer screen kind of thing?
I'd say 70% of it we sometimes leave. There are. It's not set during one night. It's set over a period of months.
Okay.
We also the guy who's contacting her, the anonymous guy JLB. We have some time with him and his perspective from his home, and that's all shot normally. Like that's not webcam or anything. So we have a little few moments of break that sort of spell. But it's very fascinating, deeply sad. And I think that's mostly due to just the incredible sense of tone and a very promising debut performance from Anna Cobb. Yeah, it's an amazing film. I think you'd really like it, Alex. It's definitely one you need to sit up and sort of like, right, okay, I'm turning all the lights off. I'm alone. I'm watching this, and I think it will be a bit more effective on you. I imagine it would have been great on a big screen, just really in the zone. But it's yeah, it's a great film.
Nice, nice. Talking of great films, we will finally talk about The Worst Person in the World, which I know we both really wanted to go see in the cinema. Uh, I don't think
Yeah,
it came out in cinemas near you again, Chris. And for
Plymouth
me, I
failed me
just
again.
yeah. And for me, I don't think the week or two it was in the Watershed over here in Bristol. I just don't think I found the time. But now having caught up with it on Mubi, where it's found its streaming home,
Hmm.
oh man, I wish I saw this in the cinema.
Yeah,
I loved this film.
I think there's so many surprises in the film. Like it's so dynamic creatively and visually, and you don't really expect all the tricks it's going to pull. You think it's going to be like a straight up dramedy, and then it kind of rewrites the genre in a way. It kind of
Yeah.
does things that are made to be seen on the big screen, and it's just such a beautiful looking film. I completely agree with you. I'm jealous of anybody who had the chance to see it.
Yes. To give you a kind of lowdown on what the film's about. So it is a Norwegian film by Joachim Trier, and it is about a young woman who battles her own kind of indecisiveness as she traverses the troubled waters of her love life and her
Mhm.
career path, and just in general trying to find her kind of place in the world, and who she wants to be, and how she wants to be. Um, and it's there's I would say there's a lot of European films that kind of, mainly French, that kind of deal with a woman going about life and trying to figure it out. Some are good,
Yeah.
some are bad, but this one I think gets really kind of playful with it and
Mhm.
very profound in places. As well as also, I just kind of enjoyed the kind of contemporary nature of it. Um, it kind of talks about kind of like the modern era and involves elements of like the Me Too movement to it and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel kind of like cringeworthy. It feels very much part of the world. Um,
Yeah.
and
Like there are really dark stings of humor in there, like when you're talking about the sort of the modern scope of sort of political correctness and that those sort of conversations we're having about the Me Too movement. There was this there's one scene in the film where there's this panel show which features like an argument between two hyperly opposed parties, one of which is like a person who is really aggressive in terms of maintaining their rights, and the other person is a liberal sort of idealist who believes that art can exist without ever having to offend or to be dangerous, and really comments on this whole collective idea with young people now, like where one character says, quote, young people, they seek out to hold the sum of Western guilt. So it has things like that on its mind too, but in sort of a neutral, it's in a neutral zone, and it's kind of coming at an analytical point of view as opposed to an opinionated, which I found quite enjoyable.
yes, and like a big thing with that kind of discussion, which or argument in a way that that happens on the TV show in the film, definitely plays out as well in the world of the film, because a big thing
Mm.
in that debate is the kind of generational gap,
Yeah,
and Julie, who's our main character, played by Renate Reinsve. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. She is, when we find her at the start of the film, she is on the cusp of 30, and she is going out with a man who is in his 40s. And
yeah,
it very much, the film is set into 12 chapters, and the first chapter of the film is very much looking at the kind of gap between them and the kind of different things that they want out of a relationship, and how that differs because they are essentially two different ages, and kind of gone through different things to get to the point where they are.
yeah,
Um, so the film plays with a lot of that stuff, and kind of Julie's own fear of kind of growing old and not knowing her place in the world. And it kind of it very much hits home. I would say like I am a couple years off 30. You're a few more years off 30, Chris. But there's a lot of kind of that emotional turmoil that I think happens in your mid to late 20s as you're trying to figure out your place in the world. Um, and I don't think I've figured it out just yet. I'd like to think I'm closer, but just that kind of really kind of impacted my way of watching this film and kind of really made me uh, drawn to Julie, and even though her kind of indecisiveness feels irrational at times, like I
Yeah,
felt like
yeah,
I could internally rationalize it. And even though she makes mistakes or things that could be perceived as kind of destructive to her own life and maybe to other people's around her,
100%.
you almost don't judge her because you've got to make mistakes in life to kind of like you're not actively trying to make the mistakes, but mistakes are going to happen because that's just what happens, and you've got to figure out your place, or at least attempt to figure out your place. I don't think one ever truly
Yeah,
knows.
I sort of agree with that statement. I mean, I think she like, I think a lot of us is coming out of a period, like you said, in her life that was very exciting in the sense that she didn't know what the world had in store for her. And again, like many of us, the unknown is exciting and sort of dramatic, and that's kind of like something you instigate from your late teens and certainly into your early 20s. It's like everything's in front of you. Julie is sort of petrified of stillness, and the feeling that she knows where her life is going to be in 30, 40 years time. She's like, right, okay, I'm on this path. Oh, the predictable is just so boring. I'm so disengaged. I'm so uninterested. But if she continues, if she continues on that path, it will sort of, it will be uninteresting for her. But so she's always in this flux and exercises her emotions quite externally, which is hard to see because that behavior, like you said, is quite destructive. And I think that character really would be unlikable, and if many of our directors were approaching it. And I think that Renate just approaches that role with such grace and intelligence that, like you say, you can sort of get on her side and understand that it's the pathway of a human being trying to work themselves out.
Definitely, definitely, and like you said previously, the film could easily have just been a pretty standard dramedy. There's a love triangle, so it even kind of like enters the kind of rom com stages at certain elements. There's the kind of iconic poster shot of her running through a street, which is this kind of like fantastical scene in the film where
Yeah,
everything around her is paused and she is running towards somebody that she's kind of fallen for, and they are the only two people moving in this world. And it's kind of like that look at like how like kind of love clouds everything around you sometimes.
what was your interpretation of that scene? Do you have like a sort of like idea of what was kind of going on there?
I internalize, like I interpret it as fantasy. I think for
Hmm.
me it was her. It's on the cusp of her making a very big decision about her current relationship, and at the end of this sequence where she is, the world has paused and she's gone to see this other man, and they're the only two people around. I think that is the moment. It is fantasy for her, and I think that is the moment she decides, if I'm feeling this way about somebody else, then I think it's time to call it quits on my current relationship.
Yeah,
And oh man, and even the scene following it, which is very real and raw, as you watch a couple break up, it's really painful. Even though
awkward.
the film kind of portrays a love triangle, I don't know if you were like
Yeah,
enchanted
it's
more by one guy than the other. I don't know. I think I
Um,
was.
well, I think that it's that you're going on the journey with Julie. Like, you see what she sees. So obviously, the involvement of a new guy who is completely different from her existing partner is very, very exciting. And then she moves in with him, and she gets into the same sort of state again. And like I said, there's such a roller coaster there. She goes back to meet her initial partner. I don't know the timeline. A year or two later, where he is in hospital with he's suffering terminal cancer, and she sees him in a new light. There's a new grace in that relationship. There's something more profound and an internal connection that she kind of establishes with him again. And I don't think she just doesn't know what she likes.
Yes,
I,
and
I That's sort of the problem.
I think she tries, or at least you could criticize the film for potentially, oh, this girl doesn't know what she is, and she defines herself by the men she's with, and I think that's a valid criticism of the film. Though that being said, I think by the end of the film, she's with no one, but she's happier and she's finding herself. Um, so it's almost like she has to find a way to kind of like push aside those relationships and realize that she needs to define her own kind of identity before being able to commit, because as her indecisiveness transfers over to her commitment with these guys.
No, I thought it was stunning at the end. Again, we're talking a lot about endings tonight, but the ending basically reaches for the stars in terms of reaching like an emotional bookend and leans into the realm of melodrama. And I think it totally earns it. It sneaks up on you and delivered a real sucker punch. I know it reduced my dear Alex to tears.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. It's very fun and it's very quirky in probably the first 2/3 of the film, and then the final
Yeah,
the
it's funny.
final third, it kind of gets a bit real and it gets more profound. And I think I almost would have hated the cancer subplot because it feels so much like tear bait, like the film what is like cry, just cry, but it does it so profoundly and in a way that like I wasn't just like sobbing. It was more of just like a very reflective little reflective cry in a way.
Yeah, and it's I think it's the first time you really see her be truly empathetic, and I think that is so profound in itself. Where she's like she finally gets it, and it's a moment of self awareness as well as anything else, and that's why it's such a great way to end the film.
Yeah, I it's very much a film that kind of lingers past its ending, and I think it's only been 2 days at the time of recording since I've seen it, but I literally can't stop can't stop thinking about it, and I really want to watch it again. Um, I think it's very much worth as well seeking out Mark Kermode's review of it. I don't know if you've listened to it, Chris, or seen it on YouTube at all.
I I believe I have. I can't remember his points on them, but please remind me.
Well, I don't even know if I can reiterate them. He waxes lyrical about it, but he kind of like really sums up the emotion and the romantic nature of the film in a way that's really beautiful, and he's much more of a wordsmith than I am, and he just puts it in such a way that like I had to listen to his review twice. It was that good. Like
Mm.
his review was as good as the film. So not to push other people away from our podcast, but if you can check that out, I think he truly does put into words just how kind of beautiful this film is.
Well, I'll have to give that another listen. But yeah, as you said, The Worst Person in the World is currently streaming on Mubi, which is available also on Amazon Prime. You can get a subscription for that. But yeah, definitely worth the the monthly subscription just to catch up with that movie. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of my favorite films of the year, definitely.
Wow.
So I think we'll call it a day there, Chris. There's a good amount of films that everyone can go out and see right now, I think, and
Of every
yeah,
nature.
worth checking them all out, even the ones that you know, even Sonic 2, would you say? All right, maybe they're all recommends apart from Sonic 2, though I know I'll definitely catch up with it at some point. Um, so next week, guys, unfortunately, there isn't going to be an episode of the film angle. This time, it's my turn to be away. So we will return the week after next with a new episode. We always kind of say what we're going to do and then it doesn't work out, but who knows? We might be reviewing Top Gun Maverick, or we might not.
Well, we'll definitely be seeing it anyway at some point. So I'm sure we'll be talking about it in some capacity. So really looking forward to it.
Yes, I know you'll see it, Chris, and I'm hoping I will fit it in at some point. And if that's the case, then we can obviously, hopefully, wax lyrical about it.
Absolutely.
But for now, guys, this was The Film Angle. I'm Alex.
And I'm Kris.
Goodbye.